The rain was a persistent whisper against the window panes of the Baldwin house. It had been falling steadily, a celestial deluge that painted the town of Elmsworth in hues of gray and silver. The rhythm was almost hypnotic, and yet there was a pulse beneath it, a subtle undercurrent that seemed to resonate with the town's deepest secrets. Elmsworth, with its cobblestone streets and Victorian architecture, was a place steeped in time, where history lingered like the scent of musty books in a forgotten attic. 17-year-old Lydia Stern watched the rain from her window, her reflection looking back at her with eyes that mirrored the stormy sky. Her auburn hair, unrestrained, fell like a cascade of autumn leaves over her shoulders. She absently twirled a strand between her fingers, lost in thought. The sound of the rain was a lullaby of sorts, a soothing backdrop to the turmoil of her mind. Lydia's thoughts were a tangled web of curiosity and unease, woven with threads of mystery and unanswered questions. She had always been drawn to the enigmatic and the inexplicable, a trait that had often gotten her into trouble. But Elmsworth was different. The town seemed to hum with an energy that was both alluring and unsettling, as if it held a secret that was just out of reach. The reverie was interrupted by the sudden chiming of the grandfather clock in the hallway. The low, sonorous tones echoed through the house, marking the hour with an almost solemn gravity. Lydia glanced at the clock, noting the time with a sigh. It was nearly 6 o'clock, and the house was unusually quiet. Her parents were attending some conference in the city, leaving her with the house to herself, save for the company of her cat, Oliver, who was currently curled up on her bed, oblivious to the world. As if sensing her gaze, Oliver stirred, stretching languidly before padding over to her. The feline had an uncanny ability to read her moods, and Lydia couldn't help but smile as he nuzzled against her. "Hey there, Oliver," she murmured, scratching him behind the ears. "What do you think? Is tonight the night we finally uncover the town's secrets?" Oliver merely blinked at her, his emerald eyes gleaming with a wisdom that seemed to transcend the mortal realm. Lydia had often joked that he was more than just a cat, a familiar perhaps, destined to accompany her on her adventures. A sudden, sharp knock at the front door shattered the quietude, causing Lydia to jump. She glanced at Oliver, who had also perked up, ears twitching with interest. Lydia's pulse quickened, a thrill of anticipation coursing through her veins. Visitors were a rarity, especially on such a dreary evening. She descended the staircase with practiced ease, her footsteps soft against the polished wooden steps. The Baldwin house was an old structure, its walls lined with portraits of ancestors long gone, their eyes following her with a ghostly vigilance. Lydia reached the front door, pausing for a moment to collect herself before turning the brass knob. As the door creaked open, Lydia found herself face to face with a figure cloaked in a rain-soaked trench coat. The visitor was a young man, perhaps a year or two older than Lydia, with dark hair that clung to his forehead in damp strands. His eyes were a piercing shade of blue, reminiscent of a winter sky, and they seemed to bore into her with an intensity that was both disconcerting and captivating. "Hello," he said, his voice smooth yet edged with an undercurrent of urgency. "I'm sorry to bother you, but my name is Gabriel. Gabriel Hawthorne. I believe you knew my grandfather." "Harold Hawthorne?" Lydia's brow furrowed in confusion. The name was familiar, a shadowy figure from her childhood memories. Harold Hawthorne had been a reclusive musician, renowned for his compositions that were said to stir the soul. Yes, I remember Mr. Hawthorne, she replied cautiously. He lived in the old house by the lake, didn't he? But I haven't seen him in years. Gabriel nodded, a flicker of sadness crossing his features. He's passed away, he said simply, the words heavy with unspoken grief. I came to Elmsworth to sort through his affairs, and I found something that I think you should see, something about you. Lydia's heart skipped a beat. About me? She echoed, her curiosity piqued. What do you mean? Gabriel hesitated, glancing around as if wary of unseen listeners. May I come in? He asked, his gaze earnest. I promise I won't take up much of your time, but it's important. Lydia hesitated, only for a moment, before stepping aside to allow him entry. There was something about Gabriel that spoke to her instincts, a sense of kinship that she couldn't quite explain. Besides, the rain was intensifying, and it seemed cruel to leave him standing on the doorstep. As Gabriel entered, Lydia closed the door behind him, the latch clicking into place with a finality that echoed in the quiet hallway. She led him to the sitting room, where the glow of a table lamp cast warm pools of light across the polished surfaces. Gabriel removed his coat, revealing a charcoal gray sweater that clung to his frame, and took a seat on the plush armchair opposite Lydia. He seemed to take a moment to gather his thoughts, running a hand through his damp hair. I found this among my grandfather's belongings, he said, reaching into his satchel to produce a weathered leather notebook. Its cover was embossed with an intricate design, a swirling pattern that seemed to shift and change under the light. He wrote about you, Lydia, about how you were meant to help solve something he called the Elysian enigma. Lydia's fingers tingled with a mix of trepidation and excitement as she accepted the notebook. The leather was cool to the touch, its surface smooth and worn from years of handling. Her mind raced with possibilities, each one more tantalizing than the last. What is the Elysian enigma? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Gabriel leaned forward, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that sent a shiver down her spine. I'm not entirely sure, he admitted, but I think it's connected to his music, to these compositions he never published. He wrote about them as if they were magical somehow, as if they held the key to something greater. Lydia's heart beat in time with the rain outside, a symphony of anticipation and intrigue. She opened the notebook, her eyes scanning the pages filled with Harold Hawthorne's elegant script. The notes were cryptic, interspersed with sketches of musical notes and symbols that seemed to form a language of their own. As she read, a melody began to play in her mind, a haunting tune that resonated with the core of her being. It was beautiful and melancholic, a song that seemed to transcend time and space. There's a recital tomorrow evening, Gabriel said, breaking the spell of the moment. My grandfather's final composition will be performed. I think it's all part of the puzzle, Lydia. I think we need to be there. Lydia met his gaze, her resolve solidifying with the certainty of a resolute promise. Then we'll go, she said with a nod. We'll uncover the truth behind the Elysian enigma, whatever it may be. The rain continued to fall, its rhythm an echo of the journey that lay before them, a journey into the heart of mystery and music. Lydia felt a thrill of excitement tinged with apprehension, knowing that this was only the beginning. The Elysian enigma awaited, and she was determined to unravel its secrets, one note at a time. The next day dawned with an unsettling kind of anticipation, the air tinged with a crisp chill of autumn. Lydia awoke to the sound of the wind whistling through the cracks of her small bedroom window, a fitting melody for the mystery that lay ahead. She rolled out of bed, her mind still buzzing with the enigmatic symbols and notes from the night before. As she dressed, Lydia's thoughts drifted to the recital. Even now, the echo of the haunting tune from Gabriel's manuscript lingered in her mind, a melody that was as elusive as it was captivating. She couldn't help but wonder what Gabriel's grandfather had intended with his final composition. Was it just a piece of music, or was it something more? A cryptic message hidden within the notes, waiting to be deciphered. Downstairs, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the scent of warm toast. Lydia's mother was already bustling about the kitchen, her usual morning routine barely registering in Lydia's consciousness as she grabbed a quick breakfast. Her thoughts were consumed by the evening's recital, the anticipation weaving itself into every action she took. Gabriel arrived at Lydia's house just as the morning sun began to burn off the lingering mist. His expression was a mixture of excitement and trepidation, mirroring Lydia's own feelings. "Ready for tonight?" he asked, his eyes alight with the thrill of the unknown. "As ready as I'll ever be," Lydia replied, trying to suppress the flutter of nerves in her stomach. "Do you think we'll find any answers there?" Gabriel shrugged, running a hand through his tousled hair. "I don't know, but it's the only lead we have right now. My grandfather was meticulous, and if anyone left clues behind, it would be him." The days seemed to drag on, each tick of the clock echoing like a drumbeat in Lydia's ears. School passed in a blur of half-heard lectures and scribbled notes, her mind too preoccupied with the looming recital to focus on anything else. She kept replaying the melody over and over in her mind, trying to discern any hidden meanings, any patterns that might reveal themselves. Finally, the final bell rang, releasing Lydia from the monotony of the day's lessons. She hurried home, a sense of urgency propelling her forward. There was still so much she didn't understand, so many pieces of the puzzle that remained frustratingly out of reach. Hours later, as dusk began to settle over the town, Lydia and Gabriel found themselves standing outside the grand concert hall where the recital was being held. The building loomed before them, its architecture a blend of old-world charm and modern sophistication. The air around them hummed with anticipation, the murmur of voices rising and falling like the swell of an unseen ocean. Inside, the concert hall was a sight to behold. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting a warm golden light over the plush velvet seats. The stage was set, a grand piano gleaming under the lights, the focal point of the evening's performance. Lydia felt a shiver of excitement run down her spine as she took her seat beside Gabriel. The program clutched tightly in her hands. The audience settled into a hush as the lights dimmed, a collective breath held in anticipation. The conductor stepped onto the stage, his presence commanding immediate attention. With a graceful nod, he signaled to the pianist who took her place at the piano, fingers poised above the keys. As the first notes of the composition filled the air, Lydia felt a chill run through her, the melody resonating deep within her soul. It was the same haunting tune from Gabriel's manuscript, brought to life with a haunting beauty that seemed to transcend the boundaries of time and space. The notes weaved through the air, a tapestry of sound that held the audience captive, each phrase echoing with an unspoken promise. Lydia closed her eyes, letting the music wash over her, each note a thread in the tapestry of the enigma she sought to unravel. She felt the melody pulling at something deep within her, a connection that defied explanation. As the final chords faded into silence, Lydia opened her eyes, her heart pounding with the certainty that they were on the brink of something extraordinary. Suddenly, The lights flickered, a brief hesitation that sent a ripple of unease through the audience. Lydia exchanged a glance with Gabriel, an unspoken question hanging between them. "Did you feel that?" Gabriel whispered, his voice barely audible over the hushed murmurs of the crowd. Lydia nodded, her pulse quickening. "It's like the music. I don't know how to explain it, but it felt like it was trying to tell us something." The conductor returned to the stage, his expression unreadable, as he addressed the audience. "Thank you for joining us this evening," he said, his voice smooth and practiced. The final piece was composed by a remarkable man whose legacy lives on through his music. "We hope you found it as moving as we did." Applause filled the hall, a polite acknowledgement of the performance. But Lydia's mind was elsewhere, her thoughts racing as she processed the evening's events. There was something more, something hidden beneath the surface, and she was determined to uncover it. As the audience began to file out, Lydia and Gabriel lingered, their curiosity compelling them to stay behind. They watched as the stagehands began to clear the set. The piano cover slid back into place with a soft thud. "We need to take a closer look," Gabriel said, his voice low and determined. "There's something here. I can feel it." Lydia nodded, her resolve solidifying like steel. Together, they made their way to the front of the stage, slipping past the remaining attendees with a practiced ease born of shared purpose. The concert hall was nearly empty now, only a handful of people remaining as they set about packing up their instruments. Lydia hesitated for a moment, glancing around to ensure they weren't being watched, before leading Gabriel up the small set of stairs at the side of the stage. The piano stood before them, its glossy surface reflecting the dim lights of the hall. Lydia ran her fingers over the keys, her touch light and reverent. There was a familiarity to the instrument, as if it held secrets within its polished exterior. "Look at this," Gabriel said, his voice a hushed whisper. He pointed to a small engraving on the side of the piano, a series of symbols etched into the wood with meticulous precision. Lydia leaned in closer, her heart racing as she recognized the symbols from Gabriel's manuscript. They were the same cryptic marks, the same indecipherable language that had haunted her thoughts since the moment she first laid eyes on them. "It's a message," Lydia breathed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Or a code. Something he wanted us to find." Gabriel nodded, his eyes alight with excitement. "I think you're right." "But what does it mean?" Lydia studied the symbols, her mind racing as she tried to make sense of them. It was like trying to piece together a puzzle with missing pieces, each symbol a fragment of a larger whole. There had to be a pattern, a connection that would reveal itself, if only she could see it. As they stood there, the sound of footsteps echoed through the empty hall, a reminder that they didn't have much time. Lydia glanced at Gabriel, a silent understanding passing between them. They would have to leave, but the mystery was far from solved. "We need to go," Lydia said, urgency threading her words. "But we can't let this go. We have to figure out what it means." Gabriel nodded, his expression determined. "Agreed. We'll come back if we have to. Whatever this is, it's important. I can feel it." With one last glance at the engraved symbols, Lydia turned away, her mind already working through the possibilities. The night was not over, and the enigma was still very much alive. Together they slipped out of the concert hall, the weight of the mystery pressing down on them with every step. As they stepped into the cool night air, Lydia felt a tremor of excitement run through her. The evening's events had only deepened the mystery, drawing them further into its depths. There was something greater at play, a symphony of secrets waiting to be uncovered. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it the promise of the unknown. Lydia and Gabriel walked in silence, their steps echoing through the quiet streets. The night was theirs, and with it the promise of discovery. As they reached the corner where their paths diverged, Lydia paused, her heart full with the weight of the journey ahead. "We'll figure this out," she said, her voice firm with conviction. "Whatever it takes." Gabriel met her gaze, his eyes reflecting the same resolve. "Absolutely. We'll solve the Elysian enigma, Lydia. I promise." With that they parted ways, each carrying the melody of mystery with them into the night. The path ahead was uncertain, but Lydia felt a flicker of hope kindling within her. The enigma awaited, and she was ready to meet it note by note. The morning sun broke through Lydia's curtains with a resolute brightness, as if trying to dispel the lingering shadows of the previous night. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing with the events that had unfolded. The Elysian enigma had whispered its secrets to her in snippets, fragments of a larger symphony she could barely comprehend. Yet the promise of discovery had set her heart ablaze with a determination that refused to be extinguished. The town of Verity Harbor, nestled by the sea, carried an air of mystery that had always intrigued Lydia. From the fog that rolled in from the ocean, wrapping itself around the old lighthouse, to the cobblestone streets lined with weathered buildings, Verity Harbor was a town of secrets. It was said that the town of secrets, stories locked away in the truths, stories locked away in the attics of the grandiose Victorian homes that lined the main avenue. As Lydia dressed, her thoughts drifted to Gabriel. His promise echoed in her mind, a vow that bound them together in this quest for understanding. She knew he would be just as restless as she was, driven by the same insatiable curiosity that had fueled their late-night investigation. They had barely scratched the surface of the Elysian enigma's mysteries, and the day ahead promised new revelations. After a quick breakfast, Lydia left her house, her footsteps quick and purposeful as she made her way to the meeting point she and Gabriel had agreed upon. The town was waking up around her, the streets slowly filling with people going about their morning routines. Yet, to Lydia, it felt as though Verity Harbor was holding its breath, waiting for the secrets hidden within its depths, to be unearthed. She reached the small park that sat at the edge of the town, its wrought iron gates flanked by ancient oak trees whose branches intertwined to form a natural archway. It was here, beneath the canopy of leafy shadows, that Gabriel was waiting for her, his silhouette a familiar sight. "Lydia," he greeted, his voice carrying a note of excitement that matched her own. "Did you sleep at all last night?" "Hardly," she admitted, a smile tugging at her lips despite the tiredness that lingered in her bones. "But I couldn't stop thinking about everything. The book, the cryptic messages. There's something we're missing, something crucial." Gabriel nodded in agreement, his expression reflecting youth. "I spent most of the night going over the notes we took. Those symbols, the ones that kept repeating. I'm convinced they're more than just decoration. They have to mean something." Lydia pulled out her notebook, flipping to the pages filled with hastily scrawled symbols and notes. "I think you're right. But without knowing what they represent, were at a standstill. That's why I did some digging, Gabriel said, his eyes lighting up as he reached into his backpack and pulled out a folded map. I found this in the archives at the town library. It's an old map of Verity Harbor, dated back to the late 1800s. And look, he pointed to a section marked with a series of symbols that matched those in their notes. Lydia's heart skipped a beat. These symbols, they're identical. But what does it mean? Gabriel grinned, his enthusiasm infectious. That's what we're going to find out. According to the map, these symbols mark key locations throughout the town. If we can figure out their significance, maybe we can piece together the bigger picture. The prospect of uncovering hidden parts of Verity Harbor's history sent a thrill through Lydia. She studied the map closely, her mind racing with possibilities. Let's start with the nearest location, she suggested, her voice steady with resolve. It's marked by the old lighthouse. Maybe there's something there that can give us a clue. With their plan set, Lydia and Gabriel made their way to the lighthouse, its weathered stone exterior standing tall against the backdrop of the sea. The sound of waves crashing against the rocks below filled the air, lending a sense of urgency to their mission. As they approached, Lydia couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. She cast a glance over her shoulder, her gaze sweeping the surrounding area, but saw nothing out of the ordinary. Just the occasional passerby caught up in their own lives, oblivious to the secrets the town held. Gabriel seemed to sense her unease. "You okay?" he asked, his tone laced with concern. "Yeah," she replied, though the feeling of being observed lingered at the edges of her consciousness. "It's just, I can't shake the feeling that we're not alone in this." He nodded, his expression thoughtful. "We're stirring up the past, Lydia. It's bound to attract attention." They reached the lighthouse and paused at its base, the entrance blocked by a rusted gate. The structure loomed above them, its presence both imposing and inviting. Lydia ran her fingers over the gate, feeling the rough texture of the metal beneath her touch. "It's locked," she observed. "Not for long," Gabriel replied with a sly grin. He slipped a small toolkit from his backpack, and Lydia watched as he deftly worked the lock. Within minutes, the gate creaked open and they stepped inside. The interior of the lighthouse was dimly lit, the only illumination coming from narrow windows that let in shafts of light. Dust motes floated in the air, disturbed by their presence. Lydia's footsteps echoed in the confined space, each step a reminder of the secrets waiting to be uncovered. They climbed the spiral staircase that wound its way up the tower, their ascent accompanied by the sound of the sea beyond. As they reached the top, Lydia was struck by the panoramic view of Verity Harbor spread out below them, the town a patchwork of rooftops and streets stretching to meet the horizon. Gabriel was already inspecting the walls, his attention focused on a series of symbols etched into the stone. "These are the same as the ones on the map," he noted, tracing their outlines with his fingertips. "But they're more intricate, like they're telling a story." Lydia joined him, her eyes scanning the symbols for anything that might reveal their meaning. "If only we knew what they represented," she mused aloud. "Maybe they're a code or a language." Gabriel's gaze shifted to a small alcove set into the wall, its contents obscured by shadows. He reached in, pulling out a leather-bound journal, its pages yellowed with age. "What do you think this is?" he asked, handing it to Lydia. She opened the journal carefully, the pages crackling softly as she turned them. The writing within was neat, almost meticulous, and as Lydia read, she realized it was a record of the lighthouse keeper's observations. But more intriguing than the daily notes were the passages peppered with references to the order. "The order?" Lydia repeated, her interest piqued. "What do you think that is?" "I'm not sure," Gabriel admitted, leaning over her shoulder to read. "But it sounds like it might be connected to the symbols. Maybe it was some kind of group or society." Lydia's mind whirred with theories, each one more tantalizing than the last. "We need to find out more about this order. If they were behind the symbols, they might hold the key to understanding the enigma." As they stood in the lighthouse, the sense of being watched returned with an intensity that set Lydia's nerves on edge. She glanced towards the window, catching sight of movement below. A figure stood at the edge of the lighthouse grounds, their features obscured by the shadows. "Gabriel," she murmured, nodding towards the window. He followed her gaze, his expression darkening. "Looks like we're not alone after all." The figure remained still, their presence a silent reminder of the unknown forces at play. Lydia's heart raced, her pulse quickening with a mix of fear and excitement. Whoever they were a part of the enigma, a piece of the puzzle waiting to be placed. "We should go," Gabriel suggested, his voice low. "I don't like the idea of being cornered up here." Lydia nodded in agreement, and together they descended the staircase, their movements quiet and deliberate. As they reached the ground floor, the figure was gone, leaving only the echo of their presence in the sea breeze. Outside, the town of Verity Harbor seemed unchanged, the day continuing as if their encounter had been nothing more than a fleeting moment. But Lydia knew better. The shadows of the past were stirring, and their journey into the heart of the enigma had only just begun. As she and Gabriel made their way back to the park, Lydia's thoughts were filled with the possibilities that lay ahead. The journal, the order, the symbols, they were all pieces of a larger puzzle, and with each new discovery, the enigma grew more complex. Yet, in the midst of uncertainty, Lydia felt a newfound sense of purpose. The mysteries of Verity Harbor were calling to her, their whispers growing louder with every step. And with Gabriel by her side, she knew they were ready to face whatever lay ahead, united in their quest to uncover the truth. As they parted ways, Lydia took one last look at the lighthouse, its silhouette stark against the sky. It stood as a guardian of secrets, a sentinel watching over Verity Harbor and its hidden past. And somewhere beneath its shadowed facade lay the answers they sought, waiting to be discovered by those who dared to seek them. With the weight of the enigma heavy on her mind, Lydia turned away, a flicker of determination burning within her chest. The journey was far from over, and the path ahead was uncertain. But she was ready to meet it, step by step, as she and Gabriel delved deeper into the symphony of secrets that awaited them in the shadows of Verity Harbor. The sound of Lydia's footsteps echoed softly on the cobblestone path as she made her way back to the heart of Verity Harbor. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the quaint seaside town, a tapestry of light and darkness that mirrored the mystery Lydia and Gabriel were unraveling. Her mind buzzed with the possibilities that lay hidden within the lighthouse, a repository of secrets just waiting to be uncovered. The events of the day played over in her mind like an old film reel. The journal, the faded photographs, the cryptic signs. Each piece of the puzzle was both thrilling and daunting. The lighthouse had stood there for generations, an unyielding monument to time and change. And now it was their turn to delve into its mysteries. Lydia had never considered herself particularly adventurous, but something inside her had come alive since she and Gabriel started their quest. It was as if the very air of Verity Harbor was charged with secrets whispering to her, urging her forward. As she made her way down the narrow streets, she passed by the old art gallery of the town, a quaint little shop that had always intrigued her. The gallery, with its ivy-clad walls and stained-glass windows, seemed to beckon her inside. She hesitated for a moment, then turned the handle and stepped through the door, the bell above jingling softly. The interior was a sanctuary of creativity. Paintings lined the walls, each canvas a vivid exploration of color and emotion. The scent of oil paints and varnish lingered in the air, mingling with the faint aroma of old paper. Lydia's eyes landed on a particularly striking painting of the lighthouse, its form emerging from a swirl of blues and grays that mimicked the moods of the sea. "Ah, the lighthouse has caught your eye," came a voice from behind her. Lydia turned to see an elderly man with a kindly face, his silver hair neatly combed back and his eyes twinkling with warmth. "It's beautiful," Lydia replied, stepping closer to the painting. "I didn't know anyone still painted scenes of the harbor. Many artists have been captivated by its aura," the man said, joining her gaze. "There's something almost magical about that place, wouldn't you agree?" Lydia nodded, her thoughts drifting back to the secrets they were determined to uncover. "Do you know much about its history?" "A fair bit," the man replied, his voice rich with nostalgia. "You see, my father was the lighthouse keeper many years ago before everything changed." Lydia's heart skipped a beat. "Really? That's amazing. I'd love to know more about it." The man chuckled softly, gesturing towards a small seating area. "Why don't you join me for some tea? I'd be happy to share what I know." Grateful for the opportunity, Lydia followed him to a cozy nook at the back of the gallery. The small table was set with a teapot and two delicate cups, their floral patterns reminiscent of another era. "So, what brings you to the gallery today?" the man asked as he poured the steaming tea into their cups. "I'm actually trying to learn more about the lighthouse and its history," Lydia admitted, adding a spoonful of sugar to her tea. "My friend Gabriel and I found some old documents that seem to be connected to it, and we're trying to piece everything together." The man nodded thoughtfully. "The lighthouse has always been a source of fascination and mystery. My father used to say that it held stories of the past, preserved in the echoes of the waves." "Did he ever mention anything specific?" Lydia inquired, eager for any clue that might help them. "Mostly legends and tales," the man replied, sipping his tea. "But there was one story that always intrigued me. It said that during the war, the lighthouse was used as a covert meeting point for those who opposed the occupation. Secret messages were exchanged, and codes were hidden in the beams of light it cast." Lydia's mind raced at the possibilities. "Do you think there might be something left from those meetings? Records or artifacts?" "It's possible," the man said, a glint of intrigue in his eyes. "Many things were left behind when the war ended. Secrets often have a way of lingering, waiting for the right person to uncover them." The idea was both exhilarating and daunting. Lydia couldn't help but wonder if she and Gabriel were those right people. The thought filled her with a sense of purpose, a determination to see their quest through. Thank you for sharing that with me, Lydia said earnestly, setting her cup down. It's given me a lot to think about. The man smiled kindly. Remember, the past is always with us, woven into the fabric of the present. It's up to us to understand its stories. Lydia left the gallery with a lighter heart, a mind buzzing with new possibilities. The lighthouse and its secrets were drawing them closer, each step revealing another layer of its enigmatic history. As she walked back home, the streets of Verity Harbor felt different, as if the town itself was a living canvas, painted with stories both known and hidden. The sun was beginning to set, casting a warm golden glow over the rooftops, and Lydia felt a renewed sense of purpose. The mysteries awaited, and she was ready to uncover their truth. Later that evening, Lydia and Gabriel met at the old dock, the place where their journey had begun. The air was crisp with the scent of the sea, and the distant sound of waves filled the quiet night. "I found something interesting today," Lydia said as they sat on the weathered wooden planks, their legs dangling over the edge. "Really? What is it?" Gabriel asked, curiosity alight in his eyes. Lydia recounted her conversation with the elderly man at the gallery, recounting the stories of the lighthouse's secret wartime role. Gabriel listened intently, his expression shifting from intrigue to excitement. "That's incredible, Lydia," he said once she finished. "It means there could be real evidence of those meetings hidden somewhere in the lighthouse." Lydia nodded, feeling a surge of anticipation. "I think we're on the right track. We just need to figure out where to look next." Gabriel pondered for a moment, his gaze fixed on the shimmering sea. "What if we start by looking for patterns? If the lighthouse was used for covert communications, there might be some kind of code or marker to guide us." "That makes sense," Lydia agreed, considering the possibilities. "We should go back and search for anything that stands out, something that doesn't quite fit with the rest." A comfortable silence settled between them as they gazed out at the horizon, the moon rising like a silver lantern in the sky. It was a moment of calm before the storm, a pause in the symphony of secrets that enveloped Verity Harbor. "Do you ever wonder what it was like back then?" Lydia asked, her voice soft in the night. "Living through the war, being part of something so dangerous and important." "All the time," Gabriel replied, a thoughtful note in his tone. "I can't imagine the courage it must have taken. But I think we're getting a glimpse of it through everything we're uncovering." Lydia smiled, feeling a deep connection to the past and to the present, to the stories that had shaped Verity Harbor and to the ones they were uncovering now. "We'll figure it out," Gabriel said with quiet confidence. "Whatever secrets are hidden in the lighthouse, we'll find them." With their resolve renewed, Lydia and Gabriel made their way back to town, their minds already working on the next steps. The lighthouse stood as a beacon of possibility, its secrets waiting to be discovered by those who dared to seek them. And as they walked, the shadows of Verity Harbor seemed to whisper their encouragement, urging them onward in their quest for truth. They were ready to delve deeper, to unravel the layers of the enigma that surrounded them, and to uncover the stories that lay hidden in the canvas of secrets. The following morning found Lydia and Gabriel back at the lighthouse, their determination unwavering. The air was crisp and invigorating, the salty breeze invigorating their senses as they approached the towering structure. "Where should we start?" Gabriel asked, scanning the entrance with a discerning eye. Lydia considered the question, her mind racing with possibilities. "Let's start with the light room," she suggested. "If they were using the lighthouse for secret communications, that would be the most logical place." The climb up the winding staircase was familiar now, each step bringing them closer to the heart of the mystery. The thick stone walls whispered stories of the past, and Lydia felt a flutter of anticipation as they reached the top. The light room was as they remembered, clean, orderly, with the great lamp at its center. But something felt different now, as if they were seeing it with new eyes. They began their search, examining every surface, every corner, looking for anything that might hold a clue. "Anything?" Gabriel asked, crouching by a stack of old charts. "Not yet," Lydia replied, scanning the walls, "but there has to be something here." They worked in silence for a time, their focus unwavering. Lydia examined the beams that supported the room's ceiling, tracing her fingers over the rough wood. It was then that she noticed something, a series of small, carved symbols, barely visible in the dim light. "Gabrielle, look at this," she called, excitement tinging her voice. Gabriel joined her, squinting at the carvings. "What do you think they mean?" "I'm not sure," Lydia admitted, tracing them with her fingers. "But they're definitely deliberate. Maybe there's some kind of code." "Like a secret language," Gabriel mused, his mind already working through the possibilities. Lydia nodded, feeling the thrill of discovery. "We need to figure out what they're saying. There might be more clues hidden here." The room seemed to close in around them, the weight of secrets pressing down as they examined the symbols. Lydia's heart raced with the promise of unraveling the mystery, of discovering the truth that lay hidden within the lighthouse. "We should take some photos and compare them with the documents we found," Gabriel suggested, pulling out his phone. "See if there's any connection." Lydia agreed, her thoughts racing as she snapped pictures of the carvings. The discoveries were piling up, each one adding a new piece to the puzzle that was the lighthouse and its enigmatic history. As they descended the staircase, Lydia felt a renewed sense of purpose. The symbols were a key, a guide to understanding the secrets that lay buried in the past. And together, she and Gabriel would uncover their meaning, would bring the stories of the lighthouse to light. The journey was far from over, but they were ready to meet the challenge. With each step, they drew closer to the heart of the mystery, to the truths waiting to be revealed. And as they stepped out into the bright morning light, Lydia felt a surge of determination. The lighthouse had called to them, its secrets whispering in the shadows, and they were ready to answer. The symphony of secrets played on, and Lydia and Gabriel were poised to uncover its melody, to bring the stories of Verity Harbor's past into the light of the present.